Welcome to the Asset Preservation. I'm your host, Stewart Willis. This will be our Giving Thanks edition, and as most of you are spending time with your family, I'd like to introduce you again to our broadcast family. Most of you know Cynthia DeFazio, our amazing host, and we're joined today by Spike Spengel. He's the voice of our Asset Preservation Hour radio show. Love having him on board as well this week.
Thank you so much. Thank you for letting me out of the booth. We're here at the Tempe Broadcast Studios. Normally, I'm locked up in my box down the hall, and he'll come down for the radio show, but I get to join you on the television show. Giving thanks to everybody and their families for watching the program. So thank you, Stewart and Cynthia, for letting me join you guys this week.
Well, gentlemen, what an amazing show we have today, because obviously we're so excited to have you, Spike. It's so much fun to have you on set with us, and Thanksgiving is always such a happy time of year. So let me ask you, Stewart, how was your Thanksgiving this year?
Oh my goodness. You know, I've spent time dropping weight, getting in shape, and all of a sudden I had this amazing meal at the White's house. They have been absolutely awesome. Kelly and Duncan White have cooked yet another amazing meal, and last night was a little bit rough here. You know, I was over at my buddy Arez's house, and he had a kind of after Thanksgiving celebration, which was a bit of a...
Did you have an adult beverage or two?
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
Not on air.
I can neither confirm nor deny that, but I can tell you that, no, I mean, listen, this is an amazing season. I love enjoying time with, you know, my family as well as my broadcast family here. You know, we have an amazing crew, not just you guys here, but the people behind the cameras. You know, we have Brett and Greg and Andrew that do a great job each and every week. Thank you guys so much for the work you do. Randy, thank you so much for the production behind the scenes. I appreciate Stephanie and Katie and everybody else in the background there that makes this show happen.
Don't forget Sean on audio. Without him, nobody hears us.
On the radio, true story. And no, I really appreciate you guys. And but this is a real time for reflection, to really kind of understand the blessings we've been given. And, you know, this time every year, I think it's really important, you know, to be grateful for what we all have. You know, obviously the markets are crazy and we have all this volatility, but right now, you know, there are people in need, and you know, we've loved taking advantage of our venue here to be able to promote the St. Mary's Food Bank. And what we are doing is we are matching, and we're asking all of our audience members to do what they can. I'm going to pull up on the screen my lower third for my name here. That'll have our QR code. If you give us a call or go to apsitaxes.com, what we're going to do this week is we're going to go ahead and match dollar for dollar our audience's donations to the St. Mary's Food Bank up to $20,000. So just remember, for every dollar you spend, for every dollar you donate, and if you qualify for Arizona tax credits, it's a dollar for dollar, you know, deduction off of your Arizona state taxes. If you have other things that you're donating there, it's obviously a normal deduction if you qualify for deductions. But, you know, for every dollar you spend, that is 7 meals for a very needy people at this time. So while I know you're grateful for your family, we really want to help other families enjoy that. So.
And you're so passionate about giving back, Stewart. So thank you so much for always mentioning that each year. It's so important and so amazing that you are so passionate about that. But today, boy, we've got a great show. And Spike, I'm so glad that you're here with us.
Normally I do this in the radio show, but maybe you could kick us out. We've got some current events that we're going to talk about. I've got some news and some features. Maybe you can hit off on the broad strokes here real quick.
Of course. We're going to do current market conditions, best income sources in retirement. That's a big one. How to make sure you're properly diversified. That's something else you're passionate about, Stewart. And the end of year tax planning. So Spike, I'm going to put you in the hot seat right now for a moment, if you don't mind. Let's talk about current market conditions.
Well, I wish I could be giving thanks about some of the news that's out there, but really right now we're looking at announcements this week. Amazon layoffs, FedEx layoffs. Before the holidays, this is really baffling to me because I'm figuring you need all hands on deck right now. Small business rent delinquencies went up to their highest rate since 2008, 37%. What this means to me is that the possibility of not being able to pay our own bills at home is coming really close around the corner. Using that R word, talking about the recession right now. And as you're quite familiar with as well, Cynthia, the housing market cooling off, good for maybe one side of the transaction, not so much for the other. Really, the backdrop of all of this is the constant announcements of the raising interest rates and how we're trying to fight inflation. But Stewart, I don't know if we're seeing it really fight the effects of inflation right now.
Well, you know what? I mean, now that political season is gone and past us, hopefully we can kind of get over, I mean, those text messages each and every day. I was darn near going to vote against my candidate, and you know, I mean, my goodness. And you know, there's a lot of studies that are done when it comes to you know, the what happens during an election year, and typically, honestly, the market historically has risen consistently up through elections, and then, you know, kind of continues on. But what happens is that people, you know, vote emotionally. Remember, there's two emotions that people vote with, or that when they invest with. It's fear and greed, right? It's the same way they vote, right? And what happens is a lot of people. I mean, it's particularly on the right-leaning people, you know, people that are Republicans. What happens is they tend to be very fearful at the thought of, you know, Democrats leading. You know, going into the elections here in the 2020, there's a lot of fear that higher taxes, higher regulation would really crash the market. And look, we've been in this crazy whipsaw back and forth in this market, and it's stirred up tons of, you know, different, you know, emotions.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, I think it's really important to just say, hey, that stuff's all biased. We've got you know, another year and a half or so before we have to deal with it again. You know, obviously, you know, the big red wave that a lot of us were expecting, you know, didn't come. And you know what that's going to do, though? I think it's going to bring some stability because less stuff gets done, right?
Right.
And that's good news, bad news. We've talked about the tax environment before. Now with a Republican leading House, I think the likelihood of any sort of major change being done is probably dead at this point.
But I think one of the warnings that you talk about a lot on the radio program as well is trying not to invest with your emotions, either the fear or greed, no matter which side of the fence you're, whether you're red, whether you're blue, your money is green, and that's what we want to focus on.
Absolutely.
That's true. Well, gentlemen, this is the perfect segue for us to go into our first commercial break of the day. What do you think? And when we come back, we're actually going to be talking about some very important things, some income solutions that are best suited for the down market with high inflation. So to our viewers at home, stay tuned. We're going to take a very short commercial break. We're going to dive back into this the moment that we return to the Asset Preservation Hour with Stewart Willis.
People are really concerned about outliving their money. Inflation, taxes, volatility in the markets, legacy. That's what people are really concerned about. Listen, I love what I do. When a client of mine can know with total confidence that they're going to be okay. At Asset Preservation, that's exactly what we do. Not only do we look at your investments, we look at your taxes and estate planning as well. We don't leave any stone unturned. That is what a real holistic shop does. Provide a very clear roadmap so that you know it's okay to enjoy retirement. Success is being able to sleep at night. And at the end of the day, what we provide at Asset Preservation is not only the market expertise by institutional money managers that are some of the biggest and best in the world, but we also provide complete advice. You need to make sure you have a plan. What you can expect from us is to let you know the truth about your portfolio.
And welcome back to the Asset Preservation Hour. My name is Cynthia DeFazio, and I'm joined today by Stewart Willis of Asset Preservation Wealth and Tax, and our special guest, Spike Spengel, radio host. I love this.
Thank you, Cynthia, for having me in.
Fantastic. I love being in the studio with both of you gentlemen. So obviously, before we went to the break, we were talking about some very important things. Wisest income sources for an environment that we are in now, which is high inflation, if you will. The market is down, high inflation.
Right. So as we talk about the markets, we had that 14-year bull run that we've talked about all throughout the television programs and radio shows this year. But now we've seen those markets come down 20, 25%. And my question for folks out there is, where do we get the returns back, especially if we are close to or in retirement? We need some sort of gains back. We're looking for solutions to a depressed market. What are you talking about with clients? What are you talking about with folks when they call in to the TV and radio show?
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the good news. Interest rates are up. And, now I'm being bombarded with questions about, hey, should I buy some T-bills? Should I buy some securities here? I mean, what should we do? Well, here's the thing. I think we have been in this amazing market for 12 years. I always say a blind chicken could have made money in this market, and they probably did. There's a lot of wealthy blind chickens walking around now, right?
That's what I've heard.
Well, I don't know. I haven't asked the blind chickens, but I assume they're doing well. But now we're in a situation where we've seen major pullback in the stock market. And people are starting to question, oh my gosh, what am I going to do going into retirement? Can I really retire now? Is this really the right time?
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think when it comes to, sources for income, just remember that now that we're kind of entering this super hyper volatile environment here, especially in this higher interest rate environment, there's more opportunity now for fixed investing, because what you typically want to do is make sure that you invest for the long term. And you want to make sure that your income source is stable, fixed, as guaranteed as you can get it.
But I think that's one of the problems that we need to highlight. In the retirement accounts that most people are using at work, we've got stocks or stock funds, bonds or bond funds. And there isn't right now that fixed option. And no, it's not that target date fund. That's another mixture of stocks and bonds or stock and bond funds. So why don't we yet see a fixed version of an option inside our retirement accounts at work?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these ERISA protected plans don't have them. Now, there's some great ones, even some great 457Bs here for, Arizona State Retirement System. Some of them have some pretty cool fixed options in them that are really worth looking at. In past, we were seeing 2-3% fixed rates. But, right now, obviously, you just want to make sure that you have a stable environment. You want to make sure you're pulling from a stable source.
Okay, and so what I'm getting a lot of, especially as we're listening to the radio show, which I will shamelessly say is on KTAR and KFYI here in Arizona,
Absolutely.
But I'm hearing tons of commercials about annuities. I'm hearing things about bonuses and guaranteed rates of return, words that we usually have to stay away from. So how do you feel about things like annuities in this environment?
Well, you know what? The one thing I'd say is the first thing you need to know is the details. Tell you the devil's always in the details, right? And I think the first thing when it comes to annuities, you have to just really understand what they are. And I don't neither like them or hate them. They're just a tool, right? They're just they're just an option. And quite honestly, over the last year, some of them have done really well because basically they've provided that ballast or that kind of safe feature. But there's a few different kinds. There's 4 different kinds that I'd like to focus on. The first one is what we call an immediate annuity. Now, an immediate annuity is when you exchange a dollar amount for a lifetime income. And generally, that's a single life income. So when you die, that value dies with you. Oftentimes, when we have a lottery winner, for example, they'll give you the annuity option or the lump sum.
Right.
Well, yes, I got sucked into the lottery, a month ago or so here. I was trying to win the $1 billion prize. And what I did do, and this is the funniest thing, is we had, 10 or 15 advisors that were pulling together $500 each. And remember, do as I say, not as I do. Do not go and buy 500 lottery tickets. Because I turned that $500 into $23 of winnings, by the way. So it was a horrible decision.
But with compound interest over time.
Well, none of us were going to take the annuity option when it comes to that, which is basically an exchange of that value for a payment over a certain period of time or over life. I generally think they're a bad idea. They're just basically paying you back your money over your lifetime, which doesn't make it.
It's kind of like the same thing like your own pension at work. If you were to pass away, the pension goes away as well, unless there was an option for your spouse. But generally, the immediate, you give them a lump sum, you step off the curb a year later, you get hit by a bus, that immediate goes away.
Listen, it makes sense if you don't know how to manage your money very well. Then there's a variable annuity. Now, variable annuities are the really scary ones to me. Variable annuities are kind of like being in the stock market inside an insurance wrapper. And a lot of these have lifetime income guarantees. And that's always a big warning to me. Whenever you hear guaranteed lifetime income, that's a problem. Now, specifically when it comes to variable annuities, what we're seeing with variable annuities is not only you paying all the mutual fund fees, all the fund fees that are inside of it, you're also paying for all these lifetime income rider fees. You're paying for mortality and expense fees. Do you really believe an insurance company is going to guarantee you a lifetime income while you're in some, crazy volatile environment that you get to pick the underlying investments?
Right.
Well, there's got to be a cost, right?
Of course.
And what we see is 3-4% in fees in some of these, so they're really, really expensive. Let me point something out to you. I'm going to pull up a slide. It's the S&P 500 slide, and if you just take a look at the first hump that we see on the left there, that was in 2000 during the dot-com crash. Take a look. We didn't get back to square until 2012.
Wow.
You see that?
Wow.
So what if, and I don't know where we are right now, right? Hindsight's always 20/20.
Sure.
But you see how down we are so far this year.
Yeah.
What if we're at the beginning of another lost decade? And that's what we used to refer to that, right? So maybe we're in that lost decade. Well, what if you're paying a 4% fee over that 12-year period of time? If you were in the S&P 500, you'd be break even over 12 years. If you're in a variable annuity, just pretend it kept up with the S&P 500. Most of them don't. And then you add a 4% fee, you're down 48%. Now, I know that's not compounded. I can't do the math in my head. I'm not smart like Spike. But
you lost me 3 minutes ago.
Right? But they're really, really, really expensive. So if you have a variable annuity or you have an annuity, you've seen it lose money in this market, I think it's really important to get to get a second opinion, make sure you know what you have. Then we have a fixed annuity. What a fixed annuity is basically just a stated interest rate environment where basically you're getting a 2, 3, 4% rate of return guaranteed for 3, 5, 10 years, however long it is, they're fine. But what we've also seen are these indexed annuities. Now, indexed annuities are really, really interesting because the argument behind them is that they basically give you a piece of the market return without the risk of the market. Now, I think it's really important to make sure you do business with an A-rated insurance company. Make sure the claims paying ability of the insurance company is really good because they're the ones making the promises, right?
But essentially, beside the variable ones, you say have incredibly high fees. The fixed and the index are very, very similar to using a bank CD, right? There's a certain duration of time. You're going to get a certain amount of interest. Now, the index, that will be based on whatever index you choose. They call those sub-accounts, right? Yeah,
and the one thing that I would say is the cautionary tale that I have when it comes to indexed annuities. And listen, there are some really good ones, and I happen to be a voice that not a lot of people in our industry like. I sit on a design committee for one of the largest insurance companies in the world. I help design, or at least add my voice to the design of some of these products. And I don't like the nonsense. Like you'll hear on the radio, 25% bonus.
25% bonus, right? Guaranteed income for what do these mean? How are they getting away with those kinds of commercials?
Well, first of all, in my opinion, they're misleading. But more importantly, I'll have clients come in and say, hey, how come yours doesn't have a 25% bonus? Well, would you really believe an insurance company is going to just give you 25% to your value? Generally, it's to an income value, or there's some sort of fee that will, basically attach it in the future. So I just say be very wary. Now, if you have an annuity and you're concerned about whether you have the right one or the wrong one, and listen, they're not all bad. There's some really, really good ones out there, especially now because of this higher interest rate environment. We are seeing rates that we have not seen in a decade. On the indexed annuities, we're seeing better products than we've seen ever before because not only are we seeing essentially reduced commissions in the environment because, of fiduciary rule and all kinds of other legislation, but we're also seeing this higher interest rate environment. So there's really good stuff out there. But if you're concerned that you have a variable annuity specifically, or you're paying all of these fees for an annuity, and you want to get a second opinion, what we're offering today is a complimentary portfolio review. At Asset Preservation Wealth and Tax, all you have to do is give us a call at 833-652-7829. Or even easier, if you click on that QR code at the bottom right of your screen, that'll take you to apsitaxes.com. You sign up for a complimentary portfolio review. We'll be glad to look at what kind of fees are you paying on those annuities, what kind of risk are you taking in your portfolio, and what kind of taxes are hiding in the background. But you have to take action today and give us a call. We'd be glad to help.
Stuart, thank you so much. And Spike, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, that number to call is on your screen. The number is 833-652-7829. We know you have a lot of questions for Stuart about how to plan your perfect retirement, perhaps questions about annuities. He's offering you the complimentary consultation. When we come back, don't go anywhere. We're going to talk about how do you know that you're properly diversified. Stay tuned for Stuart's response.
Right now, the market is a big mess, and oftentimes people feel lost. So while most people are scared, you need to know that you're going to be okay. I'm sure you have a lot of concerns about whether your portfolio really fits you. And if you need help, all you have to do is give us a call. At Asset Preservation, what we offer is a complimentary portfolio review. We can provide that fresh set of eyes to give you that second opinion. You can't get a second opinion from the guy who gave you the first. You want to make sure you're dealing with a fiduciary. We'll give you that fiduciary perspective. If you have a relationship with a financial advisor that you don't entirely enjoy, I think that's a problem, because these relationships are not meant to be short term. They're meant to last a lifetime. You don't want to deal with people you don't like. If you have concerns about your portfolio, you need to give us a call.
And welcome back to the Asset Preservation Hour. My name is Cynthia DeFazio. I'm joined today by Stewart Willis. He is president of Asset Preservation Wealth and Tax, as well as Spike Spengel, our radio host. I love today's program, gentlemen. Having all of us on the set at one time has been so much fun. And obviously in this segment, we're going to talk about how important it is to make sure that your portfolio is properly diversified, especially in a market downturn. Spike, your thoughts on that perspective?
My biggest problem right now is that the way that most people save for their own retirement is inside those 401ks or 457s or 453s at work, which means you only have the choices that are available to you inside those accounts and those funds, and it's usually only stock or bond funds. But that isn't also giving you exposure to things like a fixed income or even real estate and so forth. So how can you be properly diversified? Do we need to start investing a little bit outside of our retirement accounts at work or other options?
Well, you know what? Listen, I think it's really important for people to have, take advantage of their 401ks. We have some of the children of our long-term clients will come in and, because parents want to start them early. And I encourage you to start your kids early. I saw a study earlier that said, if you just, start your kids at 20 years old and have them put into a Roth IRA and they put, a few $1,000s a year, they'll have $2.5 million if they only put away, $5,000 a year for 4 years and let it grow until retirement. Now, what we're seeing is people that are trying to catch up and make up for all this lost time.
Yeah.
But when it comes to diversification, I think it's really important, first of all, to know your options. And so as Spike was talking about the 401ks, I think they are an important tool, because when people come to us with their kids and the kids say, hey, we want to invest with you, not in our 401k. Well, whoa, think about this. I'm not matching. Our company's not going to add matching dollars to your money. So first off, find out if your employer offers that sort of matching dollars. That's number one. Know what your options are. Number two, what if you're over 59 and a half and you do have the concerns that Spike does that, talked about, hey, do you want to be really diversified outside of the limited funds there? Well, just remember, there's some problems or issues with leaving your 401k, 457, thrift savings plan, deferred comp, whatever. And there's a risk of protections there. There's also loan provisions that you may be giving up. But at 59 and a half, generally, you're allowed to diversify. You're allowed to basically do what they call an in-service distribution, right? Okay. And you can roll it over. And that will allow proper diversification. And I think it's really important to make sure you're diversified. And, there's a couple, different measures of diversification. I think we look at it, differently.
I think it's interesting. Oh, I'm so sorry, Spike, but I was thinking of something that you mentioned, Stuart. Obviously, you had a couple that came in to sit with you for the very first time. And when they called you, they said, Stuart, I know that we're really diversified with our investments, but when they sat with you, you uncovered something totally different. So my question is, how does someone really know that they're diversified?
Yeah, and, diversified generally to a lot of people just means, hey, let's buy one of everything. But oftentimes those underlying funds, if you're buying one of everything, if you're buying a growth fund and an S&P 500 and a, blue chip, oftentimes they're 80 to 90% the same funds internally. Not all the time, but buying one of everything doesn't mean you're spreading your risk well enough. So number one, you need to understand that there's multiple kinds of diversifications. What we're talking about is diversification of investments, meaning making sure all your eggs aren't in one basket with underlying investments. But number two, most importantly, look, we've got, very few weeks left in the year here. We're talking about diversification of tax classes as well. A lot of people, like Spike said, have these 401ks, these IRAs, but they haven't considered a Roth. And remember, we are in the most efficient tax window in history. I'm going to just put this tax slide up for a quick minute here, because I know we only have a couple minutes left, but we're in one of the most efficient tax windows in history right now. And if you take a look, we're in that red zone right now. And if Congress doesn't act at the end of 2025, we're going to revert back to that blue, higher tax environment. So, guys, what I would say is maybe it makes sense to have a Roth. Does a Roth conversion make sense? And I have clients all the time that'll say, look, I don't qualify. My income's too high. I make too much money. They told me I can't. But listen, with a Roth conversion, you don't have to qualify. Anybody qualifies. There's no income limitation. The problem is you have to pay tax now. But maybe, just maybe, it makes sense to pay those taxes now, right? We've got a few weeks left in the year. Honestly, our time slots are filling up. We're doing our end of year tax planning right now. We're bombarded. But maybe it makes sense for you to find out, does a Roth conversion make sense? Am I properly diversified? If you have concerns about whether you're properly diversified, if you want your own complimentary portfolio review to find out if a Roth conversion makes sense for you, pick up your phone, click on that QR code at the bottom of the screen. That'll take you to apsitaxes.com, or even easier, pick up a phone right now at 833-652-7829. We have operators standing by. A lot of people say, hey, I'll call on Monday, and they never get to it. We have operators live waiting for you now to call. Feel free to give us a call, set up an appointment. We'd be glad to give you a second opinion.
Stewart, thank you so much. And Spike, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been
To
great.
our viewers at home specifically, especially today, we want to thank you for spending time with us. This is our Giving Back show. That number to call once again is 833-652-7829. We know you have a lot of questions for Stewart. He has the answers for you. Again, be safe and be happy. Be blessed. We'll see you back 1 week from today on the Asset Preservation Hour. Thank you for watching.